Hello and welcome to this advanced application class. What we will start with is we're going to go back into ArcGIS Online, and I'm going to show you how to build a couple of applications using ArcGIS Online. So here we are going to talk a little bit more detail than what you did using during the 135 class. So the first application that I would like us to build is called the Parcel Viewer. So here we are starting from ArcMap. So you work for a city. In this case, this is the city of Indian Wells, in Palm Springs area, that they've asked you to build a Parcel Viewer that residents can go in and look for their address and be able to find some information about their property. And so how do we build such an application? And to be able to do that, we have to have certain technologies available to us in order to do it. So in this scenario, we are going to solely rely on ArcGIS Online. And what we rely on ArcGIS Online is ArcGIS Online can be seen as a cloud-hosted service. So pretty much what this allows us to do is to move this MSD, which is currently will be on our computer, move it into the cloud, and therefore making this data available to everybody who does not have ArcMap to be able to see that data. So the whole concept of online application, or when you hear of ArcGIS server, is being able to serve your data to an audience that technically wouldn't have been able to see the data if they don't have ArcMap. So that is what we are going to be doing. We are going to build different applications that can extend the use of the GIS application, moving it from the desktop, which is just the ArcMap environment, to an environment that a greater audience can use. So here we are going to start it from ArcMap, because ArcMap is where we actually make the data to make sure the data makes sense before we can build a particular application out. So the journey is going to start from ArcMap, and this process of making the map in ArcMap, or preparing the data that you're going to push to ArcGIS Online, is what is termed as the map altering. So you're altering the map. You're going to alter the map in a way that is going to serve the purpose for which you are trying to accomplish. So with everything else, you want to start from the attribute table. So if you take a look at the attribute table, you can see that these are some of the attribute fields that we have. We have the APN. That means that if the person knows their APN, we can build an application that they can enter their APN to find their property. The data has the mail to name, the mail to address, right? The city, the zip. It has the house number. It has the direction, the street, the surface, the unit. And you can see some of the tax information. There's also primary code, secondary code. These are all tax information stuff. There's the track that the parcel is in, the acres of the property. All right. So the assessor's recorded type, the book that it was recorded in. These are all legal land description about the property. So you can see this is all the information that it came with for this particular data set that we are using. Now, what we are going to do, so this is the dollar amount, owner name. So you can see this has, roughly this is what it comes with, the school district that the parcel is located in. And we can extend it. So think about it as to say, for instance, we can add, if we know the trash pickup dates, we can add for each particular house when their trash is picked up. If we want to know, let's say, the voting district, we can add it to this. If we want to know the water district, we can add it to it. If we want to know the power company, we can add it to it. We can extend it so that when I find a particular parcel, I can find all the useful information that a person would like to know about their property, like cable company and all that. But all this is done in ArcMap first before we can extend it up into the online. So here, there's one thing that I want us to do. If we take a look at the street, the house number is just it's not combined. So what we are going to do is we are going to add the house number, the street, and the surface to be able to have like a one field which contains the house, the address to that particular property. So let's add a field. So here on the table options, add field, and then we're going to call it address, and then we'll make it a text. Call it alias address. Let's make it 30. That field is added for us over here. So now we're going to right click on the field and then go to field calculator. Now here we are going to build an expression. So the expression we are going to build would say it's a double quote, and then you are going to bring in the, no, actually we don't need a double quote, sorry. You're going to say double click on the house number and then click on the ampersand and then double quote space double quote ampersand. So what I'm saying is that add in the house number here, give a space, and then bring in the street. So here the street, and then give a space, so ampersand double quote space double quote ampersand, and then the surface. So this will create the expression that will give us the house address. So click on OK on that. Some of them are going to be 0, which is there, and then the rest will have the actual addresses to those houses, right? The 0 ones are pretty much undeveloped properties, which is fine. I think they actually also have unit number. Some of those properties might have units, yeah. So actually let's add in the unit number. So let's go back, right click on this guy, go to field calculator, and then what we can do is we can add in the ampersand double quote, and then here we can actually bring in the number, the pound sign, double quote, and then bring in ampersand, then the unit. So what I did over here is I added an ampersand, double quote, and then in between the double quote I brought in the pound sign, which will be the unit number. So it will be like the number and then the unit. So if we do that, now actually no, we don't want that. Let's remove the ampersand. Doesn't make it look good. All right, let's do that. Remove the ampersand. All right, perfect. So the ones that have house numbers, unit numbers, it will add the unit numbers, and then if it doesn't have it, it will leave it. All right, so now you can see we have that done. So the couple of other things that you can do is here, if we zoom into the data, we don't have to label it, because what happens is that when we push this data to ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Online is not going to honor the labeling of the data. So we don't have to number it on the desktop before we push it to the online. But what we could do is we can actually change the symbology. That will be on it. But one thing that you want to pay attention to is that when you are pushing data to ArcGIS Online, the symbology has to be meaningful, because ArcGIS Online works with certain criteria. So you cannot use every symbol. You cannot publish like 3D symbols to ArcGIS Online and all that. So you want to be very cautious about that. So here, because if you look at the concept of ArcGIS Online, you always have a base map, which is the imagery or the topographic base map. So what I would like to do is I would like to have no fill, and then just the outline, and then probably find a color that will be, let's see, probably 2, let's see, yeah, that might be good. A color that will stand out when you put the base map on top of it. Now here in ArcMap we cannot add the base map. We can add the base map, but we cannot publish the base map from ArcGIS from ArcMap into ArcGIS Online, because the base map is already published. So we cannot add a base map. So here I will keep this. So this data is going to be what we are going to push to ArcGIS Online, and then we'll configure the application or build the application from ArcGIS Online that way. So to be able to publish this to ArcGIS Online, we first have to bridge the connection between our desktop and then ArcGIS Online. So we have to go to File and then Sign In. And then here we are going to go and put in our sign into your ArcGIS Online account. Let's see. Okay, so here I have signed in to the ArcGIS Online account. So the same account that you use in the previous class is what you're going to use over here. If you don't have one, you let me know, and then I'll give you an account. So now that we've bridged to ArcGIS Online, there are certain things that we need to prepare, we need to have in order for this data to be able to push to ArcGIS Online. First, have to go to File, and then we got to go to Map and Data Property. We have to give it a title. So here I will call it Indian Wells Parcel Viewer. Give it a summary. Let's give it a tag. So we'll call it Indian Wells. Yep. And then hit on Save, Apply, Save. You have to fill this. You cannot publish anything to ArcGIS Online without having this available. Okay. So now that we have this done, we can now go through the process of actually what publishing a map. The word publishing stands for being able to push this data. So the parcels that we have, and this could be a couple of other data. It doesn't have to be just one layer, but in this scenario, we are only building a parcel viewer. So what we will do is we are going to publish this data to ArcGIS Online. What it means is we are going to package this data and push it into the cloud so we can actually access it through the online account. So to do that, we are going to go to File, then we are going to go to Share As, then we are going to say Service. And the service is pretty much going to give this data. Once the data goes into the cloud, it's going to have a URL. And once that URL is available, then that data could be shared or be accessed by everybody. If you want to, or just restrict it to a handful of people, depending on the sort of application you are building. So the mere fact that an application is in the cloud doesn't mean that anybody can have access to the data. There are still permissions that we can do to restrict that data from being shared or accessed by the general public. Okay, so go on. We're going to say we want to publish a service, and then go on next. And then here, when we go, we want to make sure that it says my hosted services, and you should see the San Bernardino Valley because we've already signed in. If you don't see this, that means one, either you haven't signed in, or two, you have signed in with an account which is not part of the Valley College account that I provided, or you might have received from a previous class. So if you don't see my hosted services, that means your sign-in is wrong, or you are not or you have not signed in. Basically, that's what it means. And now here, the service name, I typically like to keep the MSD name as the same as the service name, but because we are all going to use the same Valley College account, I usually will say put in your underscore, your initial, so at least it distinguishes the service, and pretty much the service, the word service here, the service that you have over here is going to replace the what, the MSD. In ArcMap, we deal with map documents as what, the MSD, but once we go into the cloud, we no longer refer to it as an MSD, we now refer to it as a what, as a service. So those are some of the terminologies that you want to get used to. And then the publishing is pretty much means what, you are pushing the data that you have in ArcMap into the cloud. All right, so hit on continue. And then when we go on continue, now here there are a couple of things that you can do. So when we go to parameters, the first thing you're going to see it says what the maximum number of records retained by the server. What it means is over here is that for each time that you zoom in onto the, remember this layer is now going to be a URL which can be accessed through the browser, and the default is 1000. What it means that at each time the server will retain a total record of 1000. It doesn't mean that that is the only amount it's going to give you, but anytime whatever you have in the extend, it's going to give you the first 1000 record of those the data. If you don't want it that way, you can change it up to say, let's say I want to start with 2000. So I'll just change it that way, and we can always change that back later on. The next thing is the capabilities. So when we go on capabilities, you want to make sure that here your data is set to the feature access and not the tile mapping. The tile mapping is going to, if you use the tile mapping, one, is going to consume all the credit that you have. Now, two, the tile is pretty much like the base map. It's not a live map. It's just like an image that you've taken. It's not going to help you. You cannot click on the data to have information about it. The feature access is the one that will allow us to be able to interact with the data that we are pushing to online in a more dynamic way. And that's pretty much what this means. So the next thing under capability is called the feature access. Now the feature access over here, this is what we can allow the data to be able to do in the cloud. Depending on the application we are building, we can allow it to perform certain operations. For instance, this is Parcel. We don't want anybody in the cloud to be able to create or delete Parcel. So I'm not going to check this because the application we are building is called a Parcel Viewer. We don't want to build an application that will allow our public or somebody to be able to just edit the data once they have access to it. We don't want it to sync. We don't want it to be able to update it in the cloud, because in this scenario, we are only asking you to view the data and get information on that data. So we will leave it that way. But in some applications that we will create later on, we will allow it to be able to create and delete and update and all that. If especially when we are building like a data collection application, we want the app to be able to create new records. We want to be able to delete records. We would like to be able to sync probably. Syncing is normally used when we want to take data offline. So if you are going on offline, you want to take the data, you can enable the sync, and then we can update. Item description. Here, because we've already done it, when we went up here, you can see everything is filled for us. And then the last one is the sharing. The sharing is where we tell the service that we are creating how we want that service to be accessed. So for instance, if I want the application to be seen by the public, then I'll check the public. And that means that when this layer goes into the cloud as a service and I use it to build an application and I share the application, everybody will be able to see it. Okay, so that is what that means. So here, let's keep the application within the Valley College. All right. And then once that is done, we can go and hit on publish. And then this will start packaging all the data. Now it's important to look over here that when it's publishing, it will give you an error, like a review. If you see 0 errors, that is good. If you see 1 or 2 errors, you need to fix it. It's not going to publish it until you fix those errors. And for instance, if you did a mistake and added a base map and the base map is not completely removed, it's going to give one error. That means you have to come into the table of content and make sure the base map is removed completely. If we're using a wrong symbology, it will alert you over here as well that maybe the symbology you are using is not supported for online application. So now here you can see my data is published, and once it's published, that data will be in ArcGIS Online. So now here is my ArcGIS Online. I've logged in. Now you can see if I go to my content, the data we just published is now sitting over here. It has moved all the parcels from ArcMap onto the IGS Online. So here, if I click on this data, and now that data is no longer referred to as an MSD, right? It's now referred to as a what? A feature layer. So that's another terminology that you want to um, add to your knowledge bank. So a couple of things we can do is we can add this into a map viewer. Okay, so let's add this guy to a map viewer. And then what it's pretty much going to do is it's going to add this data to a base map for us. I can see the parcels is going to start drawing on the background of the base map. Now remember the data limit that we gave. So I chose 2,000 records. So what it means is that initially it's going to load the 2,000 records it sees, but then as you zoom in and you zoom out, it's going to bring in more of those parcels for you. So here, I see those are the parcels on top of the base map. And then if you don't want the base map, you can always go back over here and then change the base map to something else. So if I want to use the imagery, now I have the parcels on top of the imagery. Okay. So this is just adding it into a parcel a map viewer. Now what we actually want to do is that now we want to save this. So now you've added your feature service, which is your feature layer, on top of a base map. We are going to save it, and then when we save it, then it becomes a web map. Okay, so let's save it. So say here we can still call it Indian Wales Parcel Viewer, and then I'll just put my initial because everybody's going to have the same. Just add your initial so you could distinguish your application from everybody else. So then let's give it description. You can call it the same and then save it. So now that I've saved the feature layer and the base map, now this guy is no longer referred to. This guy is now referred to as a web map. Okay, so a web map pretty much is taking what we the feature layer that you have. The feature layer can also be referred to as an operational layer. If you take a feature layer or the operational layer, you add it to a base map on IGS Online, and then you save the two, then it becomes a what? A web map. Or a web map could be as simple as just taking a base map and then saving that base map, then it becomes a web map. So now that we have a web map, there are a couple of things that we can do. So for instance, if we click on this parcel, you can see it's going to give us all the information that we had from the attribute table. Everything is here, but it's not everything that makes sense. So what we can do is we can go in and customize this pop-up. All right, and to do that, we go over to this more options, and then you are going to say configure pop-up. Then with the pop-up open, what we're going to do is so here, this is going to be the title of the pop-up, and pretty much when you hit on this plus over here, you can bring in anything that any of the fields that you want. So for instance, if I don't want, the expression is going to be like parcel, column, and then the mailing name. That's not what we want. You can see it over here. You can see what we have over here. So if we find a parcel that has a name, it's going to be something like that, which we don't like. So what we can do is we can just remove everything, and then we can say that for the title should be the address. So I'll just scroll down to the address field that we created, and then hit on the address. Okay, now here is where we have so here we say you can have the there are a couple of things you can do on the display. So display a list of field attributes, the description from one field, a custom attribute display, or if you don't want no information, you can take it out, no information as well. So you can do a couple of things, but let's try with the first one first. What we could do is we could just click on these are all the fields that is showing up over here. So we can specify which of the fields we want to show and which one we don't want to show. So we'll go over here, hit on customize, and then we will say that, okay, we want the APN to show up. We don't want the flag. We don't want the mailing list. We don't want the mailing information. We don't care about that. We don't care about the house number. We already, or we can add in the house number. That's fine. So we don't want a 1000 separator. And then we can fix the alias field to say, maybe even we don't want, just want to make it house, pound, street is fine, surface is fine, city is fine, zip is fine. Zip we don't want no, the 1000. You can take this one out. Unit, we can keep the unit. You can say unit number. You can take out this guys over here. So it's all not. We will keep the census track, the track number. Remove the 1000 separator, the acreage. We can keep the 1000 and the decimal. No, we don't even want a 1000 separator. The record type, we can remove it. The record boot, we can keep it. Remove the 1000 separator on that. Page is also important. We can keep that one. We can remove the county code. Lot type, we can keep the lot type. Keep the lot. Block number, we can keep it. Sub name, we can keep the sub name also. Taxability, yes, we can keep that. Remove that. We can keep the land value. Structure, we can remove it. Let's take out the owner name. It's for privacy. Take out the owner name. Let's take out school district, we'll keep it. And then we can take out the address because we're already using the address as a label. So we can take it out. So now here, only the fields that are checked will show up in our pop-up, and everything else is not going to show up. If it's not showing up over there, it's not going to be, if it's not checked, it's not going to show up. So now hit on OK on that, and then keep that simple. Click on OK on this. So now when we click on a pop-up, you can see that our pop-up looks much cleaner than the previous one. Okay, so that's looking good. All right. So once again, we've made changes to the pop-up, so it's better we save our map the same way you save your MSD. You save your web maps. So what we can do is, if we're going to use the imagery doesn't have the street name, so it doesn't make our map look good. What we can do is we can add in, let's add in a base map, the transportation, so we can actually go back to this guy here. Let's search for layers and say let's see. This is actually, it should be here. Let's call it world transportation. There we go. So go to Living Atlas and then just type in world transportation, and that will be this layer. And then just click on add, and then now you can see that it will add in the road names for you to make your application look much cleaner. So we want to add, browse Living Atlas layers, and then type in world transportation. That's how you get the name. So you can see we have the street names, we have our application, our pop-ups is looking decent. So now we can hit on save again because we just added a new layer to the application. And now the next thing that we can do is we can now convert this web map to what we call a web application. So a web application pretty much is a much finer finish of the web map. So it's going to be a much more complete application that your users can actually use to be able to, you know, we don't want to just send the web map to our users. It's a little bit not complete. But what we could do is we can actually convert the web map into a web application. And then that's what we will share with our users. So to do that, we can use a couple of tricks over here. Once we have a web map, you can go to share, and then when you say share, we say we want to share it with let's share it with the public. So we want to share the web map with the public. That's fine. We'll give it this warning and say update on that. That's fine. So once we say share, then when you scroll down, we have a couple of options. We can embed this application to a a website, or we can create what we call a web app. So click on create a web app, and then here we are it's going to give us some of the predefined templates that Esri already have for the users to be able to just take your web map and then pull it into a finishing frame, and then pretty much create an application without writing a line of code. Okay, so these are all the different styles of application frames that they have. So it's upon you to pick up one that will help tell the story that you are trying to tell. So here we are not doing any comparison, so I'm not going to say use the comparison one. The one that makes sense would be the basic viewer. So let's select the basic viewer, and what you can do is you can hit on preview. So if you hit on preview, it will open another tab for you, and it's going to show you how the application is going to look like. Okay, so you can see you have a kind of framework, and then you can see it has a much cleaner finish than the web map. So that is what I like. I'm going to go ahead and say create a web map. We can also download it and customize it if you want to do some custom, a little bit of, or you want to host it on your own server. You can download it and then put in the right information and then host it on your own server than hosting it in from IGS Online. So here, let's create a web application. It's going to add for the tag, summary, India view, Parcel Viewer. Scroll down and then hit on done. And then here you can see now it's moving the application, it's moving the web map into the application configurations stages. So here, these are some of the things that we have. So we have the web map. The application title is coming in from what we had already. So if we want to edit any subtitles or all that, we can add them over here. So here, if we want to say a subtitle is say created, say by, can do that. If you want to add in a splash screen, so like notifications to say some legal description before people can launch the application, you can click on that and configure and put in the legal description of what you want to say. So say welcome to Indian Wells Parcel This is a simple application, but you can put something like that in there. So there's a couple of things that we can do all without writing a line of code. We can go to the theme, and this is where the colors of the application is coming from here. So if I don't want this color and I want to pick something like that, then you have all your different colors. Your header color is coming from here. So let's see, maybe this one. Text, if you don't want the white text and you want a different bottom icon, the same, it's going to be white. If you don't want it and you want it to be something crazy, you can change it that way. If you have a logo, a link to a logo, you can paste it over there, it will add it. So for instance, if the city had a logo that had a URL, then you can grab it from there and then use it. And then here you have the layout. So the default is what it sees over here. If you want the side layout, two sidebar, you can do it. If you want a menu, it will also do it that way. So pretty much the menu will just be like a menu on a web application, sort of. If you want to, default with a rounded corners, you can do something like that. And then you can also write your own custom CSS. So if you know any CSS, you can do that. Right. So here, let's go to options, and then the options. These are other parameters that we can have on the map. We can ask it to show display the scale bar. So if I wanted to show a scale bar, we can do that. If I want to display the locate me icon, so if you fire the application on a mobile device or in a browser, it will try to find where you are and zoom down to where you are. Here you see it's adding a base map already for you, which is this guy over here. If you want to add a legend, you can enable it, the map details. If you want to add in measuring tools, you can do that. If you want to have a map overlay, so it will show a little overlay on the corner, you can also do something like that. It's entirely up to you how you want to design it. Printing, the same. So here it's allowing users to print the map. If you want to add in a legend to the printout, you can enable that. And then here you can specify one of the tools that your application is going to have as the default one. So it's entirely up to you which layer you want it to be the default. If you don't want any of them to be default, you just leave it that way. Okay. All right. So let's go to the last one, which is the search. And the search over here currently is searching on the world geocode. So here, that's where this guy is coming from. But we can also allow it to search the parcel. So we can allow it to say search the parcel. And then what we will do is that we can, let's say, go to edit. And then we can specify the fields that you want. So here we can say let's call it parcels. And then we can tell it to say other search by APN and address. No, I think it is APN control, hit on the control and click on address. So we have two fields, and those are the fields that you are, and then you can say enable. We don't want. Enable suggestion is fine. And then you can say display suggestion using address. So if I want the address field, I can use that. Then now let's take this enabled. Let's take that one out. Let's just search on the two, save. Those two are done. And then here we can say that we want to enable the search in the two. So if I start typing in the street address or on APN, it will start finding it for me using the both the world geocoder and then the parcel street that I have as well. So with that, we can hit on save to make sure that we save everything that all the changes that we've done over here. You can see my crazy colors. You can see my pop-up welcome message, and close on that. And then yeah, let's keep it simple. Let's not do any other custom stuff. Now we've saved the map, so we can hit on launch to open it in a different browser. And now this is the application that you've built. I chose those crazy colors so you can see the changes. But if I don't like it, I can always go back. I can always go back to my configuration and be able to change or edit my application. But here we've built a simple application that, so here let's test out the search. So here, let's see if we type in this guy here, and then we drop down and say I want to set that, and then hit on find. There we go. It finds that for us. So our search is working. So if a user comes into the application and they start entering their house address, you can say if we start find a house address. So that's let's just type in the house number and see. And then that was what I didn't pay attention to the street. Corona. So let's try. There we go. So it can find it in both the world locator, or if we want just the parcel, we can search it. Corona. Huh? What? No. Let's try both again. Let's try. Oh. Corona. It's able to find that parcel. So the search is working. So we can either find it by the address locator, or we can find it by the parcel as well. And pretty much this is a simple application that we've built, but this URL can now be added to the city website. Users can go in, and as I said, you can think about it. So here we can add in, if on ArcMap, if we knew the trash pickup date for each of those areas, we can add it into the attribute table and save it over here. So if you're a resident and you are looking for your trash pickup date, you don't have to pick up the phone and call the city. You can just go onto an application like that, find your house, and be able to know when your trash is picked up. If you are somebody who's moving into the new area, you can go into such application and see, okay, what school district are my children going to be in? And then you can find it over here. Who is my cable provider? Who is my utility provider? Water, electric. We can add all of it into the parcel and then serve it up into an application of this sort and be able to push it up to our users for them to see the benefit of a certain application. So this is a simple application that we have. So I will ensure that you will watch the video, reproduce it, come up with your own color scheme, and then save it up. And this is the beginning of what we are going to expand to do. Once you are done with this, let's go back to the configuration tab. You can hit on close, and then let me go back to my content. So your content is pretty much like your document. That's where everything that you create resides. So now you can see that this is the parcel data that we push from ArcMap. They came here as a feature layer. We added it to a base map, and then we save it. It became a web map. We turned that web map into a web application. So now you can see this is the application. So it is sitting in my content. So each time that you want to say you want to go back and modify the application, you can click on it, and then you can hit on configure application, and then it will allow you the same to go over it. And maybe I don't want my crazy colors that I chose, so now I want to get another more crazy color. So I can go ahead and save it, and I can launch it, and I can see the new crazy color that I chose. So you get the idea. So here it is entirely you can always go back to your content and be able to reconfigure the application to something else that you want. Okay, so it's back in your content. Close this guy. The application stays in your content, and you can go back and fill it out. So this is the first of our applications that we will do. Reproduce the demo, this tutorial video, reproduce this application, and then I will give you another data set for you to try your hands on and build an application with that, and then let's see how that goes. Okay, and then we will just build upon that and start creating some very useful applications that you can take it to. If you are working, you can go back to your work and start building application of that sort, or you know, just keep it in your bank, your knowledge bank for the time being, and then pull it out when it's needed. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.